I'm Social Free State. I'm victim of the EU migrant rape crisis and my case is still open, so I have to remain anonymous. I'm basically talking about my concerns regarding political correctness and how that actually enables crimes and also silences victims. I'm going to talk about why I don't tell friends and family about what's happened to me, and it's likely that it will upset me, so there might be editing if I do get upset. Okay, so we're living in this strange environment right now where everything's focused. The media, MPs, the elites, even just, radical people around you are so focused on political correctness, identity politics, and with that comes the microaggressions. And all this is to stop offending people, and those people who we don't want to offend are minority groups. And there are times when people like myself and thousands of other white women have been raped or assaulted, not necessarily sexually assaulted, but something's, a crime committed against white people by a minority person, perpetrator. And I call these politically incorrect crimes because they don't fit in with the narrative which is being consistently spread. And obviously, there's this huge defence against minorities being stop and searched with PACE and all these other acts which have been, set in stone in order to ensure equality across the board. Basically, what I've noticed, and I find it very upsetting for me in coming out to people about what's happened, is that there's a media push to, target white men as, malicious and disgraceful, elitist and entitled and all that kind of thing. And then there's a real hush on the other side of the spectrum, whereby, if there's migrant rape crisis, or if there's grooming gangs which happen to be Pakistani Muslim, well, these girls have to be quiet. The society as a whole has to be quiet about these sorts of things, and that leaves the victims feeling absolute turmoil. So I do have friends who are of minority races, and I have told these friends. I've also told family members. I'll give you examples of what's happened with these situations. 2 women who I spoke to, who were friends at the time, they left me in a city on my own on a night out, and they left me to make my own way home, knowing that I had previously been raped by someone and who had followed me home. They decided that it would be fun. I assume they thought it was fun because they were laughing as they left me and ran off. So presumably they thought it would be a lot of fun to leave me in a city to find my own way home. And I had told those 2 women what had happened to me because I had great faith in them. I trusted them, I respected them, and I had a very high opinion of them. And that's how they treated me. Well, obviously, I haven't spoken to those women since. I have spoken about it to one of my friends. He was Indian. Or he is, sorry, he's not Indian, he's British. I say he's British, but he says he's Indian. He wasn't born in India, but anyway, you know, whatever. That's how he likes to, you know, assign himself. So he's Indian then. And I let him know what had happened. He was dealing with a lot of issues regarding race. He felt that there was a lot of racism towards him. I think a lot of the discomfort he felt was probably because people were presuming him to be Muslim, and obviously a lot of stuff is happening these days with Muslims. In fact, he wasn't Muslim, he wasn't religious at all, he was an atheist, and it's not really something that you go into, you know, discussion about religion, but he just said that he despised religion because it created so much hatred, and he felt that it created a lot of hatred towards him. I spoke to him about it, and we soon stopped speaking. Now, I don't know whether this was because he took what I said as a microaggression, or, you know, he was offended by what I had said. Only he can answer that. It might have been something completely unrelated, but obviously, again, and he was a very dear friend to me. I knew I'd get upset. Yeah, he was a very dear friend to me, and it was upsetting not hearing from him ever again, you know, just losing contact like that. Because we talked about a lot of personal issues as well, I suppose, so we kind of lent on each other for support. I've since moved to a new area, which means that I've come across different people, and this is a very liberal, lefty area. A lot of people, you know, very openly virtuous, talking about how, you know, we've got to look after these minority groups and everything. So it's particularly difficult to open up about what's happened to me from that perspective as well. I will also say that I have come across other situations whereby they know the other person knows what's happened, and there might have been a debate on television or something like that, and the debate would have been about, you know, whether people should be in this country who can't speak English. And my thinking behind that is, well, no, they shouldn't, because they're, you know, readily available for exploitation. And I don't want to see human slavery, modern day slavery in this society, in this day and age. And that's why I don't want to see non-English speakers in the UK. It's not because I'm affected by it myself, but I want it for their own safety, and I do believe that they would be targets for exploitation. However, I don't think that people, especially people who are radically left, they don't want to listen to your reason. They just want to target you for being you know, a racist or whatever it is that they've got in their mind that you are. Even when they know what's happened in your own, and I think because they know what's happened to you, they go all out to protect that minority group even further. That very same person constantly goes up to those petition signing tables, you know, for more refugees and help the migrants with boats and stuff. It's as if they are overcompensating for what I have been through, because if people were to find out what I had been through with this person from this minority group, then it's as if in their head these people would be targeted more maliciously or something. I don't really know what's in their mind at all. But it's like they've gone to a huge extreme to become more protective over that group, and completely disregarding what's happened to me. And yeah, there's been these television debates, and because I'm saying no, I don't want to see non-English speakers moving over to the UK, they're saying that I'm racist, and they've actually phoned the police on me for a hate crime. It is laughable, but it's also very serious, because it means that, one, I have no one to turn to. Two, I don't feel that I can trust anyone to turn to them. And three, I'm expecting imprisonment anytime soon for what I'm speaking about, which is an offence against me. I've not committed any offence against anyone, and I'm threatened by these people who are friends or family, and they deal with me in this way. And of course that's the radical left, and I hadn't realised that the radical left existed, because I suppose I was living in that bubble. I mean, I'd noticed that they were these people. They had no time to listen to anyone else's opinion, which might be more to the right. And I'd always thought, well, you know, they make sense. These aren't radical rightists. They just make common sense. So I'd never been to that extent much of a radicalist, but I suppose where my fear has come from, and my fear of reporting the incident which took place on me, comes from my from my surroundings and my environment. I hadn't realised that I was, you know, in such a radical leftist environment, whereby they would phone up the police just because someone disagreed with them. I mean, that might, you know, that might also be, you know, and then they left me, you know, in a very compromised situation purposely. And that might be down to mental illness, but, or I don't really know. I don't know why people decide that that's the appropriate way to treat people who have already been through so much trauma. I can only imagine that it's because what happened to me was so politically incorrect that there has to be some kind of consequence for that. Political correctness, identity politics, microaggressions, they're all about not offending these minority groups. What's happened to me might offend some of that group because it was by a certain race of person, and I'm not willing to say that that person's Muslim, I don't know, but it was by that certain race, which was Asian, which in the UK is Pakistani or Indian. It's really difficult for someone to be non-offensive when they're sticking to this political correctness agenda and narrative, knowing that you're likely offending the person that you're speaking to, who has been, by being politically correct, because you're protective over that minority group who has severely harmed the person that you are friends with. It's just far easier to get rid of that friend, so that, because of their inconvenient truth, so that you can carry on being politically correct, and you don't have to accommodate that situation anymore. So inevitably, people like myself who have been through massive trauma, as we have been, get kicked to the sidelines as the media shows to a full extent, and so do the MPs, especially the Labour MPs. We get kicked to the side. What's happened to us? You know, they don't really want to deal with. They know that they have to deal with it at some point, but they don't want to deal with it. And this is what we all know as victims. We know that we can't turn to these people, so we don't turn to these people. And perhaps it's up to you, as those people, to have an open mind and to realise that political correctness doesn't necessarily, provide the right route, of course. You know, you've got to open your mind and expand to a greater sense of what's going on. If you're going to expand your society to multiculturalism, then you have to expand it to the likelihood that there are going to be victims of minorities. And you can't keep on defending those minorities just on the basis that it's politically correct to do so. That gives them a bigger shield to commit more horrific crimes, and it also silences victims like myself, and it also removes our support network, which isn't fair. Anyway, these are just my own reasons as to why I don't feel that I can discuss what's happened to me with my family or my new friends who I've made friends with. And I suppose it gives you a bit of insight on how it affects the victims. Anyway, if you want to subscribe, then do so, please. I'm on Patreon, and I'm also on Twitter, and I have a website. So please follow me on Twitter, because you'll see updates of my website, because sometimes I blog things. Thank you very much for taking time to listen to me and my whinging, and although it's, legitimate whinging, give me that. And thank you.